A few days ago, YouTube announced that 60 frames per second video playback will be coming to YouTube very soon. This news came along with the announcement of a tipping jar, but that's another rant for another day. This announcement suggests that YouTube is actually waking the fuck up and beginning to realize the value of gameplay related content on the website, which is pretty damn substantial if you ask me. Honestly, it should have been a no fucking brainer. When the top guy on YouTube is a Let's Player with more subscribers than the population of Australia, I think it's safe to say that game content on YouTube matters. To me, however, this move holds a lot more weight to the gaming industry as a whole, besides seeing more shitty Call of Duty commentaries running at a higher frame rate. Whether you love or hate Google, it's undeniable that the rise of YouTube over the past 8 years has impacted console and PC gaming due to marketing and the growth of gaming to the mainstream. Scummy copyright and content ID systems aside, I like YouTube as a concept, and for me, it's my primary source of entertainment. YouTube has enabled many people to take their passion online, including me, express their opinions on gaming, and provide consumers with unprecedented options for consuming content. But it hasn't all been good. The shift towards marketing games on YouTube has been to the detriment of game design due to the fact that YouTube can only output at 30 frames per second. That's why this decision is going to change how the gaming industry operates, and for the better, and I'm going to explain why. When it comes to actual game videos, YouTube is the fucking pimp. While websites like IGN and GameSpot have big audiences, YouTube makes them look like bottom bitches in comparison. Because of YouTube's sheer size, it's vitally important to market a game on the website since 1, it's free, and 2, the potential audience is limited by the number of people who actually exist. However, since YouTube has always been limited to 30 frames per second, this affects game video substantially because a lot of 6th generation games actually ran at 60 frames per second. Do you ever wonder why there are a lot more 30 frames per second games now? That's why. Movies run at 24 frames per second, so it makes fuck all of a difference. But games run at varying frame rates. Some run at 60 while others run at 30. The reason why frame rates differ is because of graphical fidelity. And when it comes to marketing a game on YouTube, graphics come first. If we get real for a minute, we have to come to terms with the fact that 90% of people who play video games don't really give a shit about the industry or the frame rate or any of that. Most of them would be amused if you just dangled your keys in front of their face. And if the $300 million opening weekend grossing of Transformers 4 proves anything, it's that a lot of people are satisfied with spectacle and no substance. In a game, how do you improve the spectacle? You drop the frame rate. But on YouTube, you literally cannot tell what game runs at what frame rate, so you don't get punished for doing so. Even though Mario Kart 8 runs at 60 frames per second, you can't tell online. So the limp dipshits who only give a fuck about graphics will be drawn to the game that looks shiny, even if it runs like shit, because they can't tell. People like you and I will be informed. We'll know about the frame rate, but those people won't realize until they actually play the game, and by that point, the company already has their money. If YouTube then allows the option to display at 60 frames per second, you'll immediately be able to tell the difference. Even the bro dudes I mentioned earlier, they'll notice and then they'll care because 60 frames per second gameplay looks better. A company like Konami would be rewarded for choosing 60 frames per second in Metal Gear Solid 5 over better graphics, while others would be condemned. This would definitely prompt game companies to actually develop their games with 60 frames per second in mind, because now that there's an option, people will know immediately whether or not your game runs like shit. It also means that the companies could not lie about the resolution or frame rate of their game. Once the first trailer goes up, we'll know straight away. This is good for consumers, particularly on consoles. See, those of us on PC don't really have to deal with this issue. If we want 60 frames per second, we can just bump down the graphics or get better parts. Console gamers have no choice, which is bullshit if you ask me. When 60 frames per second on YouTube is implemented, you can be damn sure that more console games will actually run at 60 frames per second. I've expressed numerous times that a high frame rate in games trumps graphical fidelity. I'd rather play a game that looks like dog shit and actually performs well than the best looking game ever made that runs at 30 frames per second. Anything less than 60 frames per second is suboptimal, and that's not even debatable, it's fucking fact. That's why this change is going to be good for the gaming industry. Not only does it provide you with more options, but it's going to prompt developers to put graphics on the side burner and focus on the frame rate, which matters to me. Developers like Ready at Dawn could no longer talk about how games that run at 30 frames per second would be more filmic, because this change will allow everybody to tell the difference immediately. I rarely say anything positive about the changes to YouTube, but they're finally doing something right, and they need to be commended for that. I doubt it will be very long before another bullshit change comes, but until then, props to YouTube.